The left often uses unethical and ridiculous tactics to get what they want, but could there be a way that we can use their own tactics against them in an ethical way? Well, the answer is yes, and on this episode, I'm sharing with you an interview I did with Leigh Dundas at a recent ReAwaken America Tour in Miami, and she shares what she has done in California as a human rights attorney to use the tactics of the left against them. This is an exciting interview. You're not going to want to miss it, so let's get into it right now. Hey, I'm here with Leigh Dundas, and we are at the ReAwaken America Conference Tour down here in Miami, so thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you were one of the speakers here, and you gave just an absolutely incredible speech, and you are a human rights attorney, and
yeah.
You've got some incredible resume with some of the work you've done with mask mandates and some of the different things that are going on in California. So
yeah.
Maybe just give us a quick review of what you talked about and kind of what you're up to.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I started my speech here at the Trump Hotel in Doral, Florida, by explaining that election integrity is important. I do a lot of work in third world countries against the child brothel industry. Those third world countries, most of them are either currently communist, were communist, or had a communist overthrow and genocide like Cambodia did 40 years ago. And the problem with that is the country comes out of that, if they come out of that, and they have no way of fairly electing their officials. There's no fair, honest, transparent voting system. And where that puts the people in that country is in a position of having to essentially create a coup d'etat in order to create changes in their rulers for the better. And so what I said is what I essentially said 2 years ago in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. I said, our forefathers wanted more for us than that. That is why they broke from England, fought the Revolutionary War, and then set up 3 separate but equal branches of government. Because they didn't want us to be having to fight tooth and nail against tanks and crossing the Delaware River again before Christmas. I mean, who wants that for their citizens, right? So it's very, very important that we not lose the right to vote. And right now, we're on the border of doing that, and it's imperative we clean up our compromised voting systems, Dominion, Smartmatic, Sitel, because if we don't, we're no different than a third world banana republic country, and I don't think America wants to be there, nor should we be there. Because our forefathers gave us the most beautiful gift ever in terms of the way our government is set up. So that's sort of how I started.
Now, you are in California, which is its own kind of place.
Commie-fornia.
Commie-fornia, yeah, that's right. Tell us kind of what you've done there, because you've had some success there. I mean, you've done some things there. So maybe if you can do it there, of course we can do it anywhere. So maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Name and shame programs work very well in blue states. The courts are broken, the legislatures are a runaway freight train, and the executive branch don't even get me started. But, one of the things that works well in foreign countries where you don't have fair elections, or even here in America, is you find the bad person that is pushing the bad program, and you do your research. Is this a person who cheated on their taxes? Is this a person who's got other black marks on their record that make them unsuitable to hold the elected position they're in?
Wow.
You do your homework, you get to know that individual in their program better than you know your spouse and your own name.
Wow.
And then you put anything that does disqualify them or their program on blast. And you let the weight of public opinion swing against them until they either resign or are dethroned. So we did that with our mask mandate. We were one of the first counties, if not the first county, in spring of 2020, where our health officer enacted a mask mandate on Friday night at midnight, walking into Memorial Day weekend. Because don't you always do that when you're really proud of something? You do it in the middle of the night.
Right.
So I was like, who the heck is this woman? Well, she was installed a month before. That's not suspicious, right? They get rid of the old guy, put her in.
Oh my gosh.
So I had some friends who were private eyes dig dirt. I said, I want to know what brand of toothpaste this woman uses when you're done with her.
Wow.
So they did some research over the 2 days. She had come out of med school in Utah. She had worked for her mother's methadone clinic, writing Suboxone prescriptions to heroin addicts.
Wow.
Until we paid her $167,000 to be in control of everybody's public health in Orange County.
Wow.
So I went to our board and I said, I think you fell down on your due diligence. And I named and shamed her 8 ways to Sunday. And then we went in front of her house and we protested. And we got to hear from our neighbors how awful she was.
Wow.
And we had a big sign made at Kinko's, somebody did. And I saw a little electronic eye over her courtyard gate. And I walked up there and I said, this is what I know about you that I didn't have time to say in the 3 minutes on the microphone. Your daddy left your mommy when you were in high school, and your mother, who was a medical doctor, was so darn upset, she hired a private eye and a psychic to track him down. Wow. You were so upset you did your term paper on it and a college thesis on it. And what I didn't know is that you had little kids, but I do have eyeballs, and I have a child, and I know what wet sandy buckets mean in a courtyard. You look like you have a 2- and a 3-year-old based on the size of those rollerblades, and you better make sure they are wearing a mask from here down to here every time you step out your front door, because if you don't, we will be filming you, and you won't want to know where I came from.
Wow.
She resigned the next day.
Wow.
If I had sued her, it would have been a couple $100 grand, and we wouldn't have won the lawsuit.
That's incredible.
You don't need lawsuits. You need name and shame. You need power of the people initiatives. We did the nationwide walkout. We got our first court ruling against the Biden mandate. We did the convoys. We got the rest of the blue states opened up last year when they weren't. Wow. These things work. You can do it too. You don't need to be a lawyer. Just do it.
And I mean, really what it is bringing accountability for what they're doing. It's bringing from the dark into the light.
Correct.
And the light, it just disinfects it.
Exactly.
And just exposes it.
That's right.
And so, but there's obviously a professional way to do it, a tasteful way to do it, but you got to fight. And so that's great to have that model. Are there others from a PR perspective or other, I mean, just you obviously hired private eyes, there's a team you had helping you, and you just kind of knew the game plan. I mean, is there any other advice that you would add to that?
Sometimes you can bully your bully. You know, I got that from watching 5th graders. You got a bully on the courtyard.
Somebody's got to punch him in the nose.
You know, there's always some bigger bully who will help you out if you can find him, right? So recently, last year here in Florida, the U.S. Special Olympics that host the developmentally disabled kids had said, hey, you can play in our games without a COVID vaccine. And then on the eve of the games, after these kids had trained for like a year and had their hearts set on, these are developmentally challenged children, right? I mean, they a few weeks out, they said, just kidding, you have to have the COVID vax. The parents were livid, the kids were livid, the parents were livid. These are Down syndrome, autistic. And I was like, this is wrong. So I wrote a nasty letter to their general counsel, the Special Olympics Committee. I said, what are you playing at? Your organization exists to elevate the rights of disabled youth, and you are persecuting and discriminating against the youth you allegedly serve. And you're violating state and federal law. She should have backed off. Instead, she doubled down and she kicked the entire SoCal team out of the Olympics.
Wow.
So the dad who brought it to my attention was like, what now, Leigh? And I'm like, you're going to go do 50 interviews with everybody from Tucker Carlson to Ann Vandersteel. Give me a minute. I called Bobby Kennedy. I said, do you have DeSantis' phone number? Because the games were going to be hosted in Tampa. Wow. They had chosen Florida. And he goes, no, but I got their Surgeon General, Latipo. I said, give it to me. Called Latipo. He said, they're doing what? Because he's a total freedom fighter. Yeah. I said, you heard me right. He goes, what do you think we should do? I said, oh, bless your heart. I'm not the Surgeon General or the governor, but if I were, I would just tell the Special Olympics that if she doesn't want to abide by federal and state law in my state, she can get out and play ball somewhere else. He goes, I like the way you think. They worked with the committee for 2 weeks and continued to just give them the bird. A day and a half before the games were set to start. Thursday at noon, DeSantis and Latipo fined the U.S. Special Olympics Committee $27.5 million. Wow. Thursday afternoon, the games are supposed to start in Orlando or Tampa on Saturday morning. 1 hour later, walked it back and said, let them play. So, bully your bully. She was being a bully. She was acting unconstitutionally, illegally, unlawfully. She wasn't backing down. I found a bigger bully to bully her. And so that is what we did.
Got to call it out. Well, I know you got to run, so thank you so much. Tell people where they can find you and anything else you want to share and about your book.
You can find my work and support it because it doesn't pay to be a freedom fighter, and I'd like to not be panhandling with the rest of California under a bridge soon. You can find my work at freedomfighternation.org, freedomfighternation.org. I also suggest you look at an online shopping platform we're launching by freedom lovers for freedom lovers. It is called Noblus, NOBLEUS.com. If you text the word freedom to 53445, again, freedom, the word freedom, text it to 53445. You'll get the links to all sorts of cool stuff, including the link to my new book, which is called Just Stand Up, My Fight for Freedom from the Brothels of Asia to the Streets of America, where I talk about fighting child sex slavery for the last 10 years and fighting for freedom here in America for the last 3. So I'll see you here.
Well, we've got a topic for our next interview, so thank you so much for joining.
Thank you as well for having me. Appreciate it.
All right.